What's up, my ninjas, and shout out to all the ninjas throughout the entire Omniverse. It's the man OMNI, Omni, etc. Back at it again with another video, another build. Another Saryn build, I promised you all two, and this is my second one. And we're going to get into Gloom and Doom Saryn. Without further ado, let's get to the build. So, between this build and the last build, not much difference, but let's take it from the top, starting with her abilities. Okay, so Saryn, of course, she has the passive status effects inflicted upon enemies last 25% longer. That is for every status that she inflicts, whether that be directly from her Warframe or her weapons. Spores. Corrosive spores spread nearby enemies by destroying them or killing the host. Primary way that they get destroyed is with the 3 toxic lash. It'll pop all the pox, all the spores on the enemies. But I've replaced her 2 instead of molt, instead of the distraction that I don't care for. I gave it gloom. And this has an interesting interaction with pretty much everything that she does, right? Because by her having all of these dots, by her having the spores, as well as the toxic damage that she inflicts with toxic lash, as well as the damage that she inflicts with her weapons, and the other damage throughout her build, even with the 4 miasma that does the AoE damage, on top of that does the extra damage of spores, the extra damage from those affected with spores. Pardon me. All of these damaging effects have lifesteal added onto them because of gloom. Not to mention the slowing effect from gloom, but really the lifesteal is really key here in the build. So all of the dots, all of the procs, all of the damaging effects, on top of, you know, the damage from the weapons and whatnot, are all granted lifesteal. So in essence, she's turning the enemy's health into her health, in essence. Very potent, very powerful. Let's get to the linchpin, you know what I'm saying? Not the linchpin, but the heavy hitters. The things that make the most difference in this game. The mods. All right, so for this setup, we go Prime Flow, Archon Continuity, because we want to take advantage of that toxin damage, applying even more corrosive status effects. You know what I'm saying? Have the mod Contagion Cloud, the augment to her toxic lash for Contagion Cloud. And what this does is, instead of it being a individual basis, once the enemy dies, right, instead of it just receiving the hit and that being it, it releases a cloud of toxicity, and that cloud now does toxin damage. But also, you got to keep in mind, because of Archon Continuity, it not only deals toxin, but it also applies corrosive on top of it. So now the Contagion Cloud is armor stripping, has an element of armor stripping on top of it. Very powerful, very potent. Augur Secrets, Vitality, Intensify, Blind Rage, Hunter's Adrenaline. Hunter's Adrenaline, because if you're making the enemy's health your health, you gotta be a little bit more bolder in combat. So now you can actually get energy back through absorbing energy of others. I mean, not absorbing energy of others, but absorbing damage. Absorbing the damage. You could be a little bit more confident. And also, I've always found it a tad bit funny that, you know, Saryn starts with like 300 armor, puts her about 50% damage reduction to health. So she's not really tanky, but she's not really as squishy as other caster type frames. That makes sense. She has more armor than most other caster type frames, so she's able to take hits a little bit better. With that, we have augment in the first arcane slot. What that does is just basically over time, as she's unaliving everything around her, She'll eventually stack up to 60% additional 60% additional power strength.
A new alert has begun. It will be marked on navigation.
So with that, it brings his total to 328 power strength, making her very, very deadly in the late game of survival instances, even team defense and things like that. She'll be extremely effective because she's starting out with in the later, like in the plus 20 waves and whatnot, she's starting out with that much more ability strength. Rejuvenation, because we want to start with some health regeneration, but really in all truth and actuality, this build in particular is going to have enough health regeneration in and of itself. If you want to mod it out with something else, I would go with not ready steel. Besides rejuvenation, I would use maybe physique or even combat discipline to help your squad to share a little bit of sharing in that, or even I wouldn't do aerodynamic, but the one that makes the most sense to me is rejuvenation. With that current slot, you could forma it away, and if you chose to forma it, what I would do is I would forma it for the I can't think of the symbol. I know this is Saryn. Wait, hold on. Materai. I would forma it to Materai so that you can either do additional melee damage, or you can do really Worthy Camaraderie is potent. Worthy Camaraderie, except not on this build in particular. I'm saying for the squad, very potent. But I would do either Steel Charge, Worthy Camaraderie, or Rifle Amp. And of course, in the last Arcane Energized slot, last Arcane slot, we have Arcane Energized. And that is just in case she's not taking any hits, the attention, the focus is off of her. Or again, there's a Dante in the party messing up your Hunter's Adrenaline by giving you Overguard. Then you can fall back on Arcane Energize to give you that energy back, that energy return, and make the most of it. And also Arcane Energize and Hunter's Adrenaline are two ways of receiving energy, having energy return that doesn't require you to turn Gloom off like regular basic energy regeneration methods would. You don't have to turn Gloom off. We want Gloom on at all times if possible. So that's why Arcane Energize, as well as Hunter's Adrenaline, we have more than enough ability strength to make it happen. Duration's cool. Don't really need that much duration. Don't really need that much efficiency because you're not going to be spamming abilities like that. And the duration, the duration of effects is inconsequential because the linchpin of her build, Spores, really doesn't have to. It persists as long as the subject is alive. So it's really inconsequential. But what it does help out with is keeping toxic lash on a little bit longer, as well as the duration of miasma for a full 10 seconds as opposed to 6. So that does help, but it's not necessary. So if you don't have Archon continuity and you want to put something else there, feel free to do so. All right, so not much has changed since the last build. Still rocking the good book. I'm still with the purposes Serenos. Except on this one, since we're just doing toxic and there is no cold damage, we must switch out the primary frostbite for primary blight. Primary blight is a little bit harder to get than frostbite. That's why I had frostbite on the last build and it worked out great. But primary blight actually synergizes a little bit better with this setup, and also we're making it so that we're doing more toxin damage We want to emphasize on the toxin damage for several reasons. One of which is when we get into the harmony. When we get into harmony, of course, that unique trait that I love so much. Heavy attacks condense all status effects that deal damage over time into a single instance. So that means it takes all of the time, it takes all of the damage that would have been done over time and deals it out in a singular instance. This pairs well with melee animosity. So as you're stacking up your, while you're stacking up that critical multiplier, that combo point multiplier, right? You're putting on all of your effects, the corrosive effects, the viral effects, the toxic effects, and then most of what Saryn does is dot based. So when you trigger harmonic resonance with a heavy attack through Tennokai, all of that damage on top of the Tennokai damage is done at a singular instance up front, as opposed to being drawn out throughout the dots. So her slams are ridiculous. It is absolutely powerful, phenomenal, out of this world. All right. Also, I messed up. All right. Also, can't forget about the Archon Shards. Not much has changed in the Archon Shards setup. Might swap out some of these ability durations when I get more Talforge Crimson. Then I'll find it worthy to trade those in for something else. I think we're gonna push even more strength, because I want her dots to like do tremendous damage off rip instead of just the ramp up. You know what I'm saying? So that will probably be the only change that I make there. I would change out recover 3 health for each time enemies are damaged by toxin status, but I have to remind myself that this build is these Archon Shards, I have it situated this way because she honestly does enough damage as is, but I have it situated this way on Saryn in particular because the other builds that she has don't have that health return like Gloom does. So while for this particular build it may seem inconsequential, keep in mind there's going to be times you try not to have times where Gloom is down, but you know, with the RNG of the game and the way that the drops work, there might be times that you don't see an energy orb for a while and you might get it stuck in a party with the Dante, so you're going to have to figure that out. So that's why harmony and the proboscis toxin damage will kick in and give you that health return for each enemy. So she will still, irregardless of whether Gloom is active or not, she will still have that energy. She will still have that health return. Excuse me. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. So nothing really changed between this. The main thing that changed is that I swapped out Elemental Ward for Gloom, and just so that she would have the additional health return, and she loses out on one form of CC, an additional status effect. All right, so this build is really solid for duration, like long duration. It can go a full hour. It could go endlessly, honestly, in most survivals. Even when we're talking about things like the Murmur, right? The Murmur, and even on Grenier maps that our units are heavily armored, she still melts through them because there's so much baked in corrosive damage that it strips their armor. So they're just as susceptible as anybody else is. This is why I love Saryn so much as you know, the Spore Queen. So let me know what you think of the build. Get with me down below. There's going to be more videos. More things that you can tap into, more resources for you to tap into at the end of the video, more content as I'm trying to push out all of this content on a weekly basis, if not daily. More live streams coming, more content coming. Peace, love, health, wealth to you all, to every ninja out there in the Omniverse. Until next time.
It's the big we choose. Let us sin, we're the guardians, baby, let the stakes rise.